Three is actually the debt and deficit reduction issue that we talked about. There are hundreds of billions of dollars sitting on the sidelines of this economy because banks won't lend and companies won't invest. You provide that clarity and provide that certainty in the long term to our economy and our businesses. You're going to see that money be put to use and the economy start to pick up again. It's issues like the fiscal cliff, the debt limit, the financial crisis, or excuse me, the sequestration, that are causing some of these the uncertainty, particularly with the uncertainty in Europe. So you take some of that uncertainty off the plate by providing a balanced deficit reduction program with spending cuts and revenue increases. You're going to see the economy pick back up.
Thank you. Mr. Bilek.
You're asking exactly the right question. It's a question that should be on the minds of all Americans, but particularly in an era in which 52% of graduates, people who have graduated in the past 3 years, don't have jobs. The things we need to do to get the economy growing as a whole will also produce jobs for recent graduates. That is tax relief, like I said before, give businesses and individuals back their own money so that they can invest and make the decisions that are going to grow this country. And two, Joe's right, it's about predictability. I would say, though, that one of the sources of unpredictability is the Affordable Care Act. Many small business owners have told me over and over, I don't know what's coming. And one of the things they always list when they say that they don't know what's coming is, I don't know how the Affordable Care Act is going to affect my business. I don't know what it's going to do if I hire more people, so I'm not. Another thing that's affecting a lot of people is all the many tax increases scheduled to go into effect early in the year. These are the sources of instability and unpredictability. A minute ago, Joe talked about something that sounded suspiciously like lowering credit standards to make loans, to make capital available. I think that's kind of how we got into the problem that we're in right now in 2008. It was a lowering of credit standards. It was easy credit. It was people buying things they couldn't afford, being unable to pay them back, and here we are. I think that's the wrong way to go. Second, he mentioned education. Well, when 52% of people graduating from the past 3 years from colleges can't find jobs, education isn't the problem. The lack of jobs are the problem. Pretending that it's education isn't going to fix that. We have to get it back to the basics, which means creating an environment in which businesses can prosper, grow, and create jobs.
Okay, we will have one more minute on that question. Go ahead.
Unemployment rate for college dropouts, 12.2%. Unemployment rate for high school dropouts, 12.2%. For high school graduates, 8.8%. For those with an associate's degree, 6.6%. For college graduates, with those with a bachelor's degree, 4.1%. Education, if you're a student, you're already doing the right thing, right? The question is, what can we now do to get the economy moving again? And that's where I do think, given the fact that we've gone through a terrible fiscal crisis, right? Let's remember, President Clinton left office with a $238 billion surplus. President Obama inherited an office when we lost 800,000 jobs in the first month. Yes, we still have a long way to go. We are getting there. We are making progress. We have to do more, and I think government does have a role in creating that framework.
Thank you. Mr. Bilek.
Return to my previous statement. Government's role is to create a environment in which businesses can thrive. Government is not good at creating jobs. We've seen that over and over. There is no one's blameless here. I mean, certainly in the Bush administration, many of the things that happened that created the housing crisis happened under Bush. They happened under Clinton. They've happened under Obama. There's no one who's blameless, and it's silly to point fingers. What we need to do is come together as a country and say, how do we fix this? And the way we fix this is we create an environment in which businesses can succeed. The way you do that is get people in Washington who have actually worked in business, who have created jobs, who have led companies, who have the experience that it takes to understand what works and what doesn't work, what government should do and what it shouldn't do. Joe doesn't have that experience. We need people who do. I've spent most of the past decade in various businesses. That gives insight. I'm not saying I have answers. Nobody has answers. But I am saying I know the right questions to ask, and that's important.
Thank you. Right behind you, striped sweater on this side. Right, turn around.
This is a question for Mr. Bigler.
Both candidates will have the question.
Oh, okay. I hear you embrace the wholesale Republican agenda. But if you win, you want to represent Massachusetts. How do you propose to be somewhat independent in Washington?
Thank you. I think that can apply to either candidate. Go ahead, Mr. Bilat.
How does Joe think I can be independent? That'll be interesting. I don't know where you heard that I'm wholesale part and parcel with the Republican Party.
This is...
Pardon me?
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Answer the question.
It's certainly true that more of my ideas and beliefs align with the Republican Party. Otherwise, I wouldn't be running as a Republican Party, as a Republican. However, if you look at my positions and you look at Joe's, you'll find that he's much more adherent and tied up with the Democratic Party than I am with mine. Nancy Pelosi has been doing fundraisers for Joe. The talking points he uses are straight off the website. They're straight from listen to Obama, listen to the next debate, you'll hear that Paul Ryan this, Paul Ryan that. I can name a number of places that I differ from my party's views on environmental issues, on the Nordquist Pledge, on use of force. I haven't really accepted any aid from my party. So I have a lot of more of a sense of general pragmatism rather than strict adherence to partisan views. I think that's a little bit different. That's something that separates the two of us.
Mr. Kennedy.
I think, ma'am, if I can broaden the question a little bit, it's really an issue about bipartisanship. And no matter where I've gone in this district, there's two issues that come up literally every single conversation. It's how do we get our economy back to work, and what can we do to break the logjam in Washington? And I think you've got asked a great question, because even if you've got a Democratic delegation here, you've got, it's going to be a divided Congress down in Washington. So how can you reach across the aisle and work with people from the opposite party? And I think there's real opportunity there. I'll give you a couple of examples. One, I'm a strong advocate for marriage equality and gay and lesbian rights. Representative Hanna from New York is a strong advocate as well, Republican. Representative Bill Bray from California, he's a strong advocate for NIH funding, some of the same issues that are powering our economy and so critical to research and development here in Massachusetts. I'd like to reach out to him. Tom Latham, Representative Latham from Iowa, big proponent of the production tax credit for wind. 81% of all wind capacity is in Republican districts. Right? This is a tremendous opportunity for bipartisanship. I'm a strong proponent of wind energy and renewable energy. I'd love to be able to have an opportunity to work with Congressman Latham. Kathy McMorris Rogers is actually in Republican leadership. She's a strong advocate for those with disabilities. So there's real opportunity to reach across the aisle, and I hope to have the opportunity to do so.
Thank you. We have a question right down front here in the second row.
So the military is currently conducting drone strikes in Yemen and Somalia. Both of those countries the U.S. is not formally at war with. Do you feel that as an institution, the House of Representatives needs to take back its responsibility to consent to war? And how would you handle that in your role as a representative?
Thank you. Mr. Kennedy.
It's a great question. So I think the fundamental responsibility of government is to protect American lives from every threat, no matter where that is. The fact of the matter is that there are still many people out there that wish us harm and that are plotting attacks to harm our people around the globe. I am a supporter of the President's drone initiatives. I'm a supporter of certainly the strike that the President launched that ended up in the
just lost my vote, Joe.
That does not
just
mean
lost
that
my
power
vote,
should
Joe.
go unchecked. And I think what you're seeing is perhaps a reflection of that partisan gridlock in Washington. When there is such a need to protect our country, and when Congress is so dysfunctional because of partisan gridlock, that vacuum is going to be filled. And so you're seeing, I think, an executive take that opportunity. So it's certainly something that if I am fortunate enough to be elected, I would work very hard on to make sure that there is adequate oversight over that program and others.
Thank you. Mr. Beeler.
It's actually an area I feel very strongly about. Over the past several decades, the Congress has given up, it's abdicated its experience, its responsibilities in the foreign policy arena. There's no two ways about it. Since the War Powers Resolution in 1973, it's gradually eroded. Congress's willingness to stand up to the president has gradually eroded until it reached kind of the penultimate point. This is prior to Benghazi, but during military operations in Libya, where the White House just chose not essentially to follow the War Powers Resolution. They didn't notify Congress, didn't ask permission. When the deadlines expired, they still didn't. Dennis Kucinich, who's a pretty liberal Democrat from Ohio, actually was one of the very few to stand up to the administration on that. Republicans in the Senate went along with it. Democrats in the Senate went along with it. Most of the Republicans in the House went. Everybody rallied around this thing, regardless of the fact that we had almost no national security interest there, and regardless of the fact that the American people didn't get a chance to weigh in on whether this was a good use of tax dollars and potential American lives. Since World War II, we've had 100,000 Americans lost in wars, but none of them have been declared. I believe that when we're going to use military force, there should be a declaration of war. And the reason for that is straightforward. It gives the American people the best avenue for weighing in on the use of military force. If the American people say we should do it, it's in the national interest, and then we do everything we can to win that conflict. But things like Libya, we would have never gone in because the American people would not have said this is worthy of war. Had I been in the House then, and should it arise when I'm in the House in the future, I would introduce a declaration of war, a resolution supporting the declaration of war. I would vote against it because I thought it was totally unnecessary and a poor use of capabilities and a risk of American lives. But nevertheless, that's how the process should work. I feel strongly about that. We need to get more oversight of the president, regardless of what party he is or she is. We need to get more oversight from the Congress.
Thank you. Moving on to something completely different, then we'll take another one from the audience.
Now for something completely different.
What policies or administrative practices would you support in order to improve the processes of voter registration and voting for all Americans?
Blah, 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 blah.